And they were fighting a lot in the jungle as well, and that's where Cupid really shines because you don't have a lot of places to run out of that Fields of Love. That's where LeaaN can catch you out so well, and Artio and Chang'e, especially in that jungle. If you have a small corridor, it's pretty easy to get hit by that Waxing Moon on top of that Fields of Love, so really need to keep themselves a little bit more separate, but grouping up a lot more.
Picks and bans for game number 2 on the way. Nocturns will opt for the first selection this time around. We'll see which direction they go in. You expecting to see Nocturns with the first pick LeaaN Shen or a ban?
I think a first pick LeaaN would be totally fine if I'm on Nocturns. As long as it doesn't going over to Mass, then you've got a much better chance to win this game. And taking the first pick slot as the losing team, you get the choice, I think is the right call for Nocturnes. Second pick seems pretty good right now, but first pick feels very, very important.
Why is that? So normally, I think at the absolute base level, when you talk about going for first pick, that's usually a world where there's one clear character that's just far ahead, and you really want to grab that. Right now, we're in a world where there's a bunch. You're looking at Odin, Terra, Freya, all of these choices can be kind of first selected. So why not opt for a second choice where you get 2 of them?
I think it's because the first god that you're selecting can dictate so much of your composition. And in this case, it's been LeaaN Shen, which dictates that you can really pick anything in the mid lane because you have so much set up for yourself that it means that you're able to really make it work. At the same time, I think that when there's one really, really good god, you often don't get it when you're in first pick, but when there's 4 really good gods or 3 really good gods, then you can manipulate your ban phase to ensure that you're getting one of those selections. And I think that's what we're seeing here this week.
So right now, so far, the Odin, the LeaaN Shen banned out by Nocturnes, so we won't see them choose the Dogman. Freya and Mercury banned across the way, so first selection is on the board here.
Pele is available. Pele has been one of those go-to junglers afterwards, but Athena has also been one of those go-to guardians that we've seen so many times through and through. And I think this might do a little bit better for him than the Kumbhakarna. Kumbha is really great when you have that big follow-up afterward, but when you fall so far behind, getting that combo with the Kumbhakarna really just doesn't do anything where a dash taunt is going to be relevant at all stages.
I think CLG should be ecstatic that they get to pick Pele in this position. They shouldn't be surprised, though, because Nocturnes had the chance to go Pele last game and chose against it. I don't think it was picked or banned in the LG set, if memory serves. So Weekend hasn't shown that he really wants to play it so far for Luminosity, and SmiteVOD really hasn't shown it too much for Nocturne. So it shouldn't go too much of a surprise that it's available from this position. Maybe CLG feels like they can wait until right before the second ban phase, get 2 other priority picks from this slot, and then get Pele third. But if I'm them, I'm definitely trying to pick it before Nocturnes has another chance to ban.
Nocturnes did this once before in the week where they go the Athena first selection and kind of leave a lot of contested picks on the board. CLG going to go directly for Pele and the Chiron, which has become sort of the de facto choice versus the Athena. The cleanse is just so easy to use these days that it really works wonders against the Global Guardian.
I mean, Chiron is basically just the second Geb now with that cleanse. It used to be they pick Athena, we pick Geb, so now it forces them to have to taunt multiple people, and that's the big thing is now Athena has to taunt the Chiron and somebody else so that way the cleanse doesn't come through. Otherwise, Chiron just presses 1 and the team is out.
Plus, Chiron doesn't just do the cleanse. I mean, my man's does a lot of damage. Yeah. Centaurus is an insane ultimate. I mean, it'll hit you for over half your health even through the early game. So this is a pick that I think has definitely been flying under the radar a little bit. I really like it, but I love this Serqet pickup against it. Now, the one thing is that Serqet can also struggle against cleanses, so this is really the onus is on SmiteVOD here to be consistently going on wherever this Chiron is, whether it's to Hurriwind in the mid lane or Snoopy in the dual lane. But as long as he can focus that Chiron out or take a fight where Chiron isn't around, this is one of SmiteVOD's best players, or best characters.
Exactly. SmiteVOD's Serqet is one of those characters that I think where you look at the picks and ban phase and every character, you're doing the math and then you just have the X factor. And that SmiteVOD's Serqet is the X factor. Doesn't really matter where the math lines up. The homie's just going to go off on the god. Also, anti-heal against Pele, super love it. Serqet's going to be able to hit him with the stinger and then just wind up negating the entire passive of what Pele. That's what Pele does, is the whole sustain through heal.
Yeah, once she drops under that half threshold, which Serqet can put you there very quickly in the early game, as soon as that last breath poison is, Pele just has to back out because she can't get that sustain back through with her passive. But they're picking another big healer into the Serqet. Sylvanus, highly immobile, but we saw what Jeff was able to do with it yesterday on SSG. We'll see if it can work out the same here for Jigz.
I don't mind it. CLG seems to be a really big fan of this strategy of, well, you've got some things that are good against what we have, but we're just going to pick so many of them that you can't kill us all. That seems to be the strategy for CLG. They did it yesterday against Rival with the Geb pickup and the Chiron. They picked every CC that needed to be cleansed, and Rival was able to do it. In the last game, they picked everything that needed to be beads, so they just had a bunch of it. Yeah. They're going with heals this time around. I mean, Pele, Chiron, and Sylvanus, all our characters that Serqet really wants to be going on every single fight, and she has to choose one.
Nox banned out here one more time. Love that ban from Nocturns. Hurriwind's played it 3 or 4 times now in this tournament, just alone. He's looked fantastic on it. And also, again, true damage from Serqet, one of the rare things that are going to mitigate that. So that's taken off the board, along with the Chunga, which I think was just too much for Nocturnes to handle. fineokay just looked fantastic on it, and there didn't seem to be anything stopping it.
Yeah, I mean, even whenever he was diving the base, he was just having the time of his life on this Chunga, just doing anything he could. Even pop the meditation in the base just to make sure he could stay there a little bit longer to distract Fort. And not only that, just her battle mage tendencies are just so strong with this Opwash locked in. I love this combination with Sylvanus. Sylvanus is one of those guardians you love for large AoE dot-based ultimates such as the Zeus and the Opwash.
Opwash is a character that I would have asked Nocturne's mid laner to play if I'm in this pick ban phase. Like Ryan said, there's so many things that you want to anti-heal. Serqet can't do it all by herself. Opwash can just add to that scenario, and I think CLG saw the situation with the writing on the board, grab Opwash for themselves to prevent them from being countered, and also, he's Opwash.
Well, you just love use of Opwash. I love me some Agni on the other side. I think this is a really good pick. I was thinking of Raijin here for LeaaN, but Agni fits the same bill and the same reason that I would have wanted Raijin. That's big AoE damage that could easily spread Divine Ruin, because you're going to need it early in this game. And Agni can fit that bill. It's also a god that can punish Opwash for his immobility with a long-range bomb stun. Sets up beautifully for the rest of Nocturnes. It is pretty good damage follow-up off of Athena taunts as well. I really like Nocturne's draft.
And I'm really liking the Sobek pickup here for fineokay. It's a little bit tankier than the last time around, but it's a Sobek. He's extremely tanky, and it's going to be really difficult to kill him, and he has a lot of chase down and lockdown potential with that pluck, with that tail whip, able to really go in on a lot of these gods.
Hoyi also crossed away for Nocturnes, liking that one. This is, again, I think a very close draft, similar to game number 1, where the draft was similar as far as prowess is concerned, power level, and it all kind of waged out on the battlefield. I liked Nocturne's draft before, but I think CLG just kind of overpowered them. What's your take in game 2?
I think CLG looked like they came to play today and definitely wanted to come out with that 2-0, and I think with this draft they certainly have the capability to do so. I agree with J-Mac. This Sobek pick covers up the one weakness the CLG roster had, and they didn't have good initiation. fineokay can do that with Sobek.
Especially going against something like a Hoyi who's able to easily be chased down out of that dive bomb. It's not as telegraphed as something like a Neath backflip, but once you see where he's going, that charge prey is very quick and chase him down super fast.
Well, whatever the outcome may be, we're certainly going to be treated to an exciting one. Nocturnes and CLG. Hey, Finch, can the Nocturnes do it?
It's going to be a difficult task, Tom, but they certainly have the opportunity. Game number 2, their backs against the walls, an elimination match for Nocturnes, and certainly a chance to be dropped out of the tournament. And CLG with a strong draft certainly look poised to do it.
They do, but Nocturnes now getting a playmaking god in the jungle role. SmiteVOD switching things up from the Bakasura now to the Serqet. Has the ability, and he wants to play aggressive, you can tell, because he already picked up the blink.
That's right, not worried about that safety factor right now. He is trying to be the one that keeps this Nocturnes team alive. Feels like they're a bit on life support right now against CLG with this Pele, with Snoopy on the Chiron into the Athena matchup for the cleanse, the Opwash for Hurriwind as well. A really strong, oppressive draft from CLG.
It seems that that's going to be a reoccurring theme. Whenever Athena is drafted that early, that Chiron's going to be selected for the cleanse counter, and then we've seen also when Freya's get selected early, specifically from Rival, or Rival giving up Freya's, that they'll combat that with a Jingwei.
Right. Those kinds of matchups are good ways to respond right now because there's a lot of picks up at the top end, it feels like. So when you can have sort of a way to respond to those in the picks and bans right away, it can sort of free you up in your drafting phase. As Zaionsix and Noitulover recognize that Sylvanus, Chiron going to be able to clear the wave pretty well, so they'll just head to purple.
Oh, I don't know if they're even going to get this in time, though. They're going to use their abilities. There goes the shield wall. Ricochet being held on.
And Now they're in some trouble. The Ricochet is going to be enough to get the buff, but can Zaionsix make it out? Double root forces the beads and the sprint. Noitu is quite low on the back end, but totally, this is why you show some presence in the lane, so they can't just push right up to your tower line.
But the problem is, if you're going to show presence in the lane, Jigz is going to root you. Snoopy's going to be dealing a lot of damage as well. I almost would have liked to see that Nocturnes start the red buff instead of purple, so they wouldn't take all that poke and waste all those potions.
Very strong early start here from CLG. And what did they use with that dual lane pressure last time? It was multiple repeated red buff invades. This time, LeaaN not allowing that to happen. He went right to the red buff and already has it. But if CLG have this pressure, they'll have multiple opportunities to look for them again. 4-man collapsing on their own red buff, actually going to split that up. 2 on the red, 2 on the back camps. Not wanting to overshare that experience. Good idea from CLG, keeping themselves still good in the experience department. But with red buff now and purple for CLG, they're going to be able to be hyper aggressive in this dual lane. That's right. CLG being a little bit, or rather the dual lane be a little bit greedy with this early pressure they have going over the red buff. But I like this because they were able to play through it so well last time, so why not? And as you said, they'll have this red buff hunter advantage over Zaionsix since Nocturnes had to give LeaaN the red buff. Now, that'll be the advantage for Snoopy over here in duo. That'll be very difficult for Nocturnes to try and match.
And difference of the hunter build, Snoopy going for that physical power build for the Transcendence rush into also the Mage's Blessing, an item that we don't normally see on hunters, but getting extra physical power scales very well with the Chiron, especially when there's some self-sustain on the Chiron with the herbal medicine.
That's right, just like the Cupid from last game. I was going to point this out too, totally, that it's a way for him to go to Transcendence and not miss the lifesteal as much as Jigz takes some poke from Noitulover. Now, and not quite as potent as those hearts, but certainly Snoopy will still feel the benefit from that herbal medicine.
And I like the fact that the training exercise is being used from Snoopy during the taunt there.
Yep.
It's a very short cleanse. It's about 0.3 seconds before the explosion occurs. You saw the little white flicker. That's during the cleanse animation. And that's not going to necessarily save Jigz's life against the taunt all the time, but it's to disrupt the flow of Zaionsix lining up the Ricochet stun after the taunt.
Purple buff invade successful this time for CLG. That's why Nocturnes is moving over towards the red buff. And this is what I mean about it stretching to other parts of the map. It's good that Nocturnes still confirm the red buff for themselves, but now that means that LeaaN and SmiteVOD can't grab it, so it's farm that's kind of having to be made up somewhere and coming at the expense of the mid laner.
fineokay being the bully in this matchup so far. Daelon very low in the mana department. Blue buffs just recently taken by both of these solo laners. Going for Guardian's Blessing now as we're seeing fineokay finishing off the Shoes of Focus. Does have teleport. Daelon not going to be far behind though.
You brought this Mage's Blessing up early, Tully, and I want to hear you talk a little bit more about it. I mean, Hunter's Blessing is still pretty good. I mean, Chiron can definitely still get plenty of auto attack focus, even during the giddy up, where he essentially has like that haste effect working for him. I mean, yes, it's good to have those abilities hurt more, but is it that much better than Hunter's Blessing?
It is, because also you're getting 10% cooldown reduction from
That's
the
true,
Mage's
yeah.
Blessing. So you add the 10% also from the Transcendence. Now you're sitting pretty, being able to get off multiple training exercises. You can use one defensively to prevent the taunt, and then not soon after you can drop another one offensively.
And it also gives him an extra safety factor, more ultimates as well, and if he can find a way to get that kill while he's inside the ultimate, he can even potentially get a reset if he was down below that health threshold where he would have been killed otherwise. So certainly a strong option for Snoopy, and I like that there's some variety in not just the gods, but the build pass as well that Snoopy's showing us here.
And when he plays the Muzengob, he'll also go the Mage's
That's true, he
Blessing,
will.
even before the recent changes that we did to the item. So he's just a fan of this item in particular. And I think that if you're looking for early to mid-game pressure, I think Mage's Blessing goes a long way from items 1 through 3, whereas the Hunter's Blessing is going to help you out once you get the power spike items on, specifically the Executioner, to get off that extra attack speed and stacks.
LeaaN is coming to join this duo lane fight. Will be here in time, but also so is Hurriwind. Red buff does eventually get dropped, but Snoopy already in the ultimate only. But LeaaN with a great pull from Jigz to force out the beats from Zaionsix. No more follow-up, but Jigz showing he's in rhythm.
Man, he instantly used that Wrath of Terror, knowing that he was going to hit the pull as well. 2 ultimates from CLG just for the beads out of Zaionsix. Could be worth it as long as they capitalize during this downtime.
And towards the back end of the fall split, we really weren't seeing that much Sylvanus, but Jeff Hinla played it when Space Station played yesterday. Jigz looking good too, and now more aggression from CLG. The knockup gets there on the back end of the taunt. They're going to fight through the Suns. The dive bomb allows Zaionsix to reposition, but he's split away from Noitulover, and he's going to be in a lot of trouble here.
Oh yeah, nowhere to go for you. Mask even thought that the dive bomb was going to happen under that tier 1 tower, realizing that the jump was actually behind the Gold Fury, buying as much time as he could, but at the end of the day, a 3-man gank against 2 members out of Nocturns. That was destined first blood.
Yeah, and good luck running away from a Pele, right? I mean, that's just not going to happen. Even if she's auto-attacking, that extra movement speed feels like it makes up for it, and she's able to stick right with you. So that respawn first blood going to Snoopy in the duo lane. Hurriwind drops down the ultra to keep Smatero off him, and he will be able to survive. Even having to use the purification beat, so Smatero making half of a play there. So he needs to capitalize on the second half once the last breath is going to be available. So despite not getting much on the left side for Nocturns, they're able to get a little bit of something in the mid. Though it might be harder. It looks like he had to use the blink to set that one up. So we'll see if he can capitalize next time without it. Wait, let's go back and look one more time at that first blood that Snoopy was able to find in the duo lane. Set up a pretty nice play with some help from Mask. Yeah, Snoopy was doing a good job just focusing the right targets there, being able to use that giddy up, getting a little bit closer to Zaionsix, slowing them down with a masterful shot. First blood bounty yet again going to Snoopy in game 2. Just Mask making impactful rotations. Zaionsix, I like the idea, but yeah, you got to give this one up. Snoopy and Jigz make the rotation there a little bit faster. Had the minions with them, so Zaionsix certainly knew. But Noitulover looking to see if maybe he can find something more in the jungle, but has to give up on that. Yeah, the giddy up preventing that little miniature knock-up disrupts any dash taunt play that Noitulover had in mind, and CLG doing a good job playing off of one another in the dual lane, and I think Mask is basically the catalyst for all this action. Smatero goes aggressive, Deathbane and Last Breath all there, but without the auto afterwards, Mask should be okay, at least for now. So Smitero's committed, the ultimate should be a little bit weaker, but LeaaN and Noitulover want to go back in. They make Hurriwind the target. This time no beads available, but it's still not enough damage. Hurriwind makes it out. I think that they should have went on to Hurriwind to start things off instead of the slippery little Pele to catch him out there. Zaionsix trying to ricochet off the wall. Not going to have it for the lane clear now, and it's going to be a 2-on-2 as both Jigz and Noitulover return to the duo. Look at that pressure. Snoopy was able to get on that tier 1 Tully. It is almost down already. In both games, this duo lane was out of control for Nocturns right from minute 1, and that kind of shrinks the map if you're Nocturns now. There's less options for where Smitero can try and go to try and find reliable ganks. That's why he's trying to force them on Mask, or they're not on the same page with Hurriwind. Losing the duo lane right away really hurts. Yes, but at least it's not as bad as it was in game number 1 when Snoopy was playing the Cupid, looking for the red buff invades consistently, having about a 2-level advantage over Zaionsix in game number 1. So they're slowing down some of the bleeding, but losing a tower this early on is not the end of the world, because that'll free up some more guaranteed farm for Zaionsix, not having to worry about it getting denied under his own tower. But when you don't have that kind of map pressure or vision control, then that's going to open the door for CLG to secure some Gold Furies. So either Zaionsix can keep the waves meeting near his tower, then he can farm relatively safely, and force Snoopy actually to overcommit potentially as he finds a nice ricochet, but Jigz right there to heal him up, and the purple buff invaded yet again. This one's safer and maybe a little less impactful, but still good farm. Not going to get the red buff the same way they were in game 1, but going for the purple. Double taunt now, LeaaN getting this bomb off, but it's only onto Jigz. Wrath of Chiron knocks up Noitulover, and the pull back in. Snoopy finishes it off with the ultimate. CLG kind of forcing it that time around the red buff and able to win the fight. They're able to even drop the red buff on the ground as Daelon thinking about what he wants to do against fineokay, but he needs to think about rotating to this Gold Fury because CLG are almost securing it. LeaaN is on his way. I think he's recognizing it, but he's never going to make it in time. CLG get the first Gold Fury of the game. Snoopy might be in trouble now, though, as Smitero blinks in. Defender of Olympus there as well, and Noitulover is the one that gets the last hit, the first kill for Nocturns. Getting the beads and the kill now onto Snoopy, but CLG did the damage, stripped away purple, red, and the Gold Fury. I'll trade a Hunter that's only a level 10 every day of the week for those 3 objectives. Once again, CLG using that dual lane pressure, but Nocturnes trying to answer back by just kind of grouping up and forcing down this tier 1, and they're able to grab it. LeaaN, Smatero, and Noitu all there, and CLG still backing after that last fight. Good recognition.
Oh, wow. Mask able to steal that one away, but he has to use the beads, knowing that SmiteVOD was right around the corner, dropping the Cobra's Kiss. And this is how Nocturns get back in the game, playing off of each other, 4-man collapsing on every individual target.
And this is how Nocturns were able to stay so close in their set up against LG, was that they started grouping a little bit ahead of LG and just kind of trying to win off numbers advantages wherever they could, even though LG were kind of doing a little bit better farming than them in those games. And that's what you even heard Aggro talking about on the desk, right? If they're kind of losing in these 2v2s, these jungle rotations, then group up and try and force objectives down.
Without the life of Snoopy, it was pretty easy to confirm that tier 1 mid tower and then transitioning to the right side of the map. They need to do a little bit more than just that. Once they have these wards that identify where CLG are traveling to, they can look for plays on the opposite side of the map if they can't defend these buffs. Go for Pyromancer. Go try to kill out fineokay. Get a tier 1 tower in the solo lane.
They got to be here for the red buff defense one more time. SmiteVOD pulled back in and no beads. He went with Blink early on and pays for it there. A nice kill for Hurriwind, and looks like they're able to drop the red buff.
CLG is saying, whatever you do, Nocturns, we can do better. fineokay even rotating in that encounter. 5-man collapsing on those 2 buffs, and now going to go for a tier 1 mid tower of their own. Daelon is going to teleport here, making it a 4-on-5.
There's a nice 2-man comp, but Jigz responds with a Wrath of Terra. Noitu pulled right back into the crypts. Hurriwind finds the first kill. Snoopy finds the second on the Daelon with the snipes from the backside. They didn't get the tower, but they win the fight.
Because of the empty the crypts, Daelon had to move in a linear path to escape that one, setting up a beautiful shot with the Centaurus snipes from Snoopy.
Tier 1 tower being aggressed one more time, and Zaionsix too low to move in without any front line to speak of. Tier 1 tower is theirs, and the Ricochet cannot find Mask. Now CLG will come right back to grab the Pyromancer. And it looks like Nocturnes want to at least try and defend.
I love the double sustain yet again from CLG. They can extend these engagements by the beautiful taunt from Noitulover.
And LeaaN is right there to follow up with the Rainfire. Mask has to use the ultimate just to disengage. They end up losing Snoopy, but only Snoopy, and they cannot confirm the Pyromancer. So a good job from Nocturnes to find something on the back end, and now they can pull the objective.
They have to get this objective finish to keep themselves still relevant in the game. SmiteVOD zoning out Hurriwind. Pyromancer at about 50% health. Daelon making the rotation. fineokay is close to stealing that one away, but just narrowly not going to get it.
Couldn't quite find his way in. So a great response from Nocturnes to actually keep this game very close. Only about 1,000 gold separating these 2 teams here at this point. Even less experience. So throughout 13 minutes, despite how the duo lane has looked, if you want to say the eye test, to use a sports cliche, it's looked very heavily CLG. Nocturnes are very much still in this.
Leaps and bounds of improvements between game number 1 and 2 for these Latin American teams, as we're seeing even SmiteVOD thinking about going for the Mad Guy's cloak, but he doesn't have any CC immunity yet.
He somehow was able to make his way out of there, even with
the
Jigz
snipe!
Keeping the CC there. Snoopy looking for it, but he has to guess at where he's at and can't quite get it, so SmiteVOD will survive. As once again, the red buff invade comes through. Last time LeaaN was able to defend it, but not this time. Snoopy grabs it.
Man, Snoopy was so close to finding the kill there onto SmiteVOD, trying to put himself on that highlight reel. Not going to find it this time, but at least getting a tier 1 tower, getting more additional buffs out of the hands of Nocturnes. And as good as the gold and the experience is from those buffs to deny from Nocturnes, the actual value of what the buff does is better for CLG, because now they can split those 2 red buffs between their damage dealers, Hurriwind on the Outwash and Snoopy on the Chiron.
Yeah, that is the big difference. Purple buff is still pretty good when you're able to have it, but doesn't feel quite as good as that red buff, which they've been able to procure this time. But look at the path LeaaN is taking here throughout his early build. This isn't what we normally see. We often see like Book of Thoth or some kind of big power bank item in that first slot, even Bancroft sometimes. But he's gone with this early rush of the penetration, Spear Magus and Obsidian Shard.
I usually call this the blue build, where you just get all the blue items in the Mage Tree build. But honestly, he kind of ignored the Book of Thoth, surprisingly enough, trying to really get some of that cooldown reduction and penetration. And for an Agni player, it's very easy to stack up the Spear of the Magus once you get your passive up.
fineokay will be the target. Last Breath is there as well. Even Daelon joining in, and fineokay a little bit too far forward that time and all alone, and Nocturnes did a good job collapsing. And now with the 5v4, it's Nocturnes looking at the Gold Fury.
They probably should get this, honestly, in a 5-on-4 with fineokay dead for 30 seconds. SmiteVOD without the last breath, but that's all that was really invested with the addition of a couple of bombs from LeaaN.
If CLG recognize this is happening, they don't much care about it because they didn't even try and get over here. So Nocturns will grab that, and that will bring the gold to dead even at this point in the game. Nocturns, as you said, making a huge improvement in this game, and I think it comes with how well they responded to CLG's multiple buff invades. They weren't always losing buffs or always losing multiple members.
That's very true, and I think CLG would have been able to defend that if there was more of an investment onto fineokay. If Zaionsix used his ultimate there as well, then they wouldn't have to worry about that big zoning ultimate, and they could freely dive, because Last Breath is a huge tool to allow Nocturns to get those picks.
A lockdown, the anti-heal, and the damage all provides. Very strong in those pick scenarios, part of why Serqet's been highly valued. But not as much this week, it's felt like. Serqet's fallen a little bit out of favor, maybe. Or perhaps she's one of the back pocket picks some of these teams are holding on to as they wait till later on in the tournament. But SmiteVOD has no more tournament to wait for. This would be it for Nocturns if they didn't win. So whatever there is left in the bank, you got to pull it out now.
And the reason why Serqet has been disrupted a lot is simply because of how favorable the Artio has been in the meta. Artio's cripple, really shutting down what a Serqet wants to do, and that's another reason why Nocturns pick the Artio with the Serqet, that they don't have to worry about that.
Artio have been a strong matchup, a strong pick rather, into a lot of these matchups. Similarly disruptive towards Terra as well, and that's part of why we've seen her value rise. The CLG just going to stick around for their own red buff this time, and mid-Harpies go to Nocturns. Without Gold Fury or Pyromancer up, these teams probably aren't looking to fight right this moment unless they find a nice pick, waiting until one of those mid-game objectives comes back up.
Gold Fury coming back up in 3 minutes. Pyro in about 1.5 or so, so this could be a good opportunity to ward up the right side of the map. But Snoopy is actually in a little bit of trouble.
Defender of Olympus coming through for Zaionsix as well, so this certainly could look like a good fight. Taunt there for the follow-up, and a nice pick for Nocturns over in the duo lane, catching out Snoopy and Mask here a little bit too late. In fact, SmiteVOD waiting for him to force out beads.
Surprised that the Last Breath wasn't used at the tail end of those purification beads after investing that blink, but at the end of the day, picking off Snoopy. It's a 5-on-4 advantage. Nocturns is going to barrel down this tier 1 duo lane tower, and Snoopy just kind of lapsed in the judgment, not really respecting the threat of the Athena global pressure.
And that's the one that I think really changed that, because Snoopy's probably right. In the 1v1, he's not under that much duress, but like you said, got to keep your head in a swivel and be aware that Athena can show up anytime. As Nocturns, I think, wisely give up on trying to force down the tier 2, and instead they are moving really quickly towards the middle lane. They might want to rush over to Pyro or something like that.
It seems to be the case. It would be too ambitious to go for the Fire Giant in a 5-on-4, knowing that Snoopy is back up, but Snoopy has to travel back from the fountain, so they have a small window to secure it.
Over on the right is Mask. fineokay right over the wall. It has Blink to come in and disrupt. Mask comes in. Right there is fineokay with the tail whip, but Nocturns are able to grab the Pyromancer, but can they escape? Sprint lets them get away from the lurking in the waters, and they should be out.
Oh, but I'm expecting CLG to maybe force something else here. Fire Giant could be the call, knowing that that sprint was used. Zaionsix and Noitulover's ultimate still not available, considering it was used onto Snoopy, but too risky, knowing that SmiteVOD is having the Last Breath.
Mask trying to catch us SmiteVOD in the jungle. Last Breath being used to avoid getting hit by that volcanic eruption, but between the masterful shot and Mask, certainly nowhere really for him to go, and Mask is able to clean up the kill.
That's right. Speed buff onto Mask allows him to chase him down very effortlessly. Good snipes also coming out of Snoopy to at least confirm one more hit. And that was as good as of a play SmiteVOD could have did defensively. So. Using the Last Breath defensively, trying to prevent the damage from the ultimate out of Mask, but none of the teammates from Nocturns were on the left side of the map. They all were retreating from the right.
Good try, but as you said, really not much more he could have done on that one from SmiteVOD. But what a great last few minutes, I would say, from Nocturns. Just kind of grouping up around the map. They played well off the pick on Snoopy in left side and found the tier 1 tower, and then recognized they had a window to come get the Pyromancer as well. They had some struggles in game 1, yes, but this is probably the best looking of the international teams, and Nocturne showing it in their set against LG and here against CLG.
That's right. That sprint was so crucial to get away from the slow, that lurking in the water. fineokay was trying to catch everyone down. Even the ultimate from Hurriwind was being used, thinking that the teamfight was about to pop off, but at the end of the day, walking away cleanly with that objective allows Nocturnes to get about a 900 to 1,000 gold lead.
I'm pretty sure LeaaN just wants the entire pin tree at this point. He's got the Spear of Magus Shard and Divine Ruin now to try and round that one back out. So he's not even worried as much about power. It feels like at this point it's about shredding through some of these protections from Jigz and fineokay, and we might get to see that do some work here as Jigz already half HP.
Not really finding the snipes that he wanted to with Snoopy, hitting only one of the 3 shots. Will set up the masterful shot, and Jigz taking so much of his health pool has to back on out, and Snoopy, without the Centaurus, could open the window for Nocturns to pull this gold here.
They're certainly thinking about it. They've got it pulled. Smatero is going to rotate into this one a little bit behind everyone else near those mid-harpies, and for now, Nocturns drop it. Just trying to see what the response from CLG will be if they actually want to all commit on this.
I don't expect CLG to commit on this, but they definitely have the defensive measures to contest it if they certainly want to. fineokay trying to strip away that Mag Ice Cloak from Smatero in the mid lane. Team's kind of flirting with the idea of this Golden Harpy, but finally it's CLG to pull the trigger.
It is CLG that want to try and get this one started, and now it's up to Nocturns to correctly force the disengage, and for now they do it. I do want to point out, it looks like Snoopy's at full CDR at this point with abilities going.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, his abilities will be constantly up.
I like this idea here, but Golthier already less than half health. You can tell CLG are not actually interested in completing it. They want to put Nocturns in a bad position.
And I think this is right. If you're CLG, you feel a lot better forcing the answer from Nocturns, right? Can they repeatedly, cleanly force you to disengage? And I think against a slightly less experienced team, you can expect them to potentially slip up.
Something we don't see very often from these Outposh players is setting up corpses behind themselves whenever they know they're going to get dove on, right? Like Hurriwind is saving his corpses for the zoning pressure, but you could just leave a couple of them on the ground in the backline and still throw out more if you really wanted to. But Gold Fury, yet again, round number 3.
And this is the right call. Just one more time. Nocturns, are y'all nearby? What's your answer going to be? And Nocturns are showing they are certainly still here. You can't just have it for free. So CLG will fall back for now, but this certainly will be the fight here for this mid-game. Jigz at half HP, but it's fineokay blinks in, and Zaionsix gets blown up right away. Smatero trying to control mass, but everyone on Nocturns low, and Daelon will be the first to fall.
Good disengage from CLG, protecting the life from Jigz and killing out Daelon at the same time. This is the true elite caliber performance you're expecting from a North American SPL team, to constantly do a little bait and switch with the Gold Fury.
And they repeatedly sort of lulled Nocturns into this sort of pattern, right, where they would pull, Nocturns would show up, and CLG would fall back. But this time, CLG were much more ready to go in for the engagement. fineokay did a great job, as did Mask, and Jigz did get low, but had some help right there. They're able to get Daelon. And now CLG want to try and start up the Fire Giant with Smatero right nearby.
fineokay could actually pluck the Fire Giant, surprisingly enough. Jigz doesn't have the Wrath of Terror, but he does have the pull if he wants to pull somebody a little bit closer.
They drop it for now to CLG. It looks like they want the fight. Instead, the pull lands as Zaionsix gets yanked back in, but he still had Dive Bomb available, so he'll be okay for now. CLG give up on the Fire Giant and can't find much in the fight.
Yeah, with Daelon coming back up, he's able to teleport back in, and this is why CLG are disengaging, respecting the 5-on-5 now.
Fire Giant is putting some damage on the Daelon, but he can shrug it off. This Pyromancer not really being considered by Nocturns, not at this point. But now we're having the same dance we had last time, except this time it's a lot hotter around the Fire Giant pit.
Jigz needs to be the last target that Nocturns focus out on. They need to go on somebody else, because in that last Gold Fury scuffle, how many abilities were dropped on Jigz? Too many, because once Mask went in, the only thing that was left in the tank was the last breath, but there was no other follow-up. So Mask was able to just get on out of dodge there, while Daelon was stuck between a rock and a hard place. So if anything, if Noitulover's looking to dash taunt, it's got to be onto Snoopy, because it's the same story when you're trying to dash taunt against the Gep. Whoever you go on is going to get the Gep shield, so you got to taunt the Gep as a result. But this time, the cleanser is the Chiron.
Chiron might have found Jigz here in the middle lane. He'll be able to pull him back at the last breath, and they find a nice pick. Jigz a little too far forward.
Hold that thought, though, because fineokay is about to go back in. He misses the pluck, but LeaaN can't get away.
Snoopy's the one that cleans that kill up. Empty the Crypts comes out from Hurry, and they've managed to isolate Noitulover in the middle lane. They pull him back in with the pluck, but Noitulover able to keep on running. CLG only get 1 for 1.
The interaction of the knockup into the pluck prioritizes the knockup, and that's why you didn't see Noitulover go back into the thick of things with CLG. And as I was saying that they shouldn't focus Jigz, well, Jigz is going to be by himself, then yeah, sure, you might as well blow him up.
Pyromancer being looked at in the 4v4 favor CLG. They're only missing Jigz, whereas Nocturnes don't have their Agni to help them out, so they grab the Pyromancer and fall back. But this focused Jigz discussion, I think that you're right. They're having a hard time doing it. But who else is LeaaN's build that effective against? It's definitely still going to hurt these carries, yes. But if you're triple committing to the pin build, it's got to be for these tanks.
It makes sense. Yeah, you're basically a tank killer. There's not that much magical power in his build. Needs to get some online. He's working on what I believe is going to be a Soul Reaver now. So his damage is certainly going to be felt with all those bombs.
He's up at the top, 11,000 right now for LeaaN. And Nocturne's the only one still near the Pyromancer, but they're not going to pull this just yet. Just going to confirm the vision and force Jigz' rotation. But these last couple of fights, Nocturnes have been heavily committed to the Sylvanus, and it really seems like whether or not that initial commitment is clean or not, whether they're actually able to find him and back off afterwards, has been the tail of the tape.
And with Mad Guy's Cloak almost complete for Jigz, it's going to be even harder because he's going to be able to cleanse that initial CC disruption. So CLG can breathe easier knowing that Jigz should have a second life.
Still not around the Fire Giant pick just yet. We're 26 minutes into this game, and Nocturne's still very much in this one. Based on what we saw there in Game 1, it would have been hard, I think, to call it this way, but Nocturnes have drafted a little bit better this time. They've been much more responsive to CLG's duo lane pressure, and they've been better about disengaging just in general. Only 13 kills total in this game so far. That's not a lot, and Nocturnes are staying even because of it.
It came down to being able to mitigate the bleeding, right? Every time that CLG did something, Nocturnes responded in some way or another. Getting the tier 1 mid tower was clutch. Getting the kill onto Snoopy into the tier 1 tower into dual lane was nice. Getting the Pyromancer immediately after the kill from Snoopy is keeping them still relevant in the game. And the second factor you have to consider is that CLG wasn't able to just roll Nocturnes over and consistently invade the red buffs. They got a few, but not even close to how many they got in game number 1.
Snoopy continuing with that same build path we saw from that first game. Transcendence, Ninja Tabi, Jotun's Odysseus Bow into the Titan's Bane. So this certainly has plenty of ability-based focus. But the Odysseus Bow and Titan Bane is nice to give them plenty of damage off those autos as well.
Absolutely. You're looking to be hitting the tanks, the frontline tanks that's going to be at you, so it's easy to spread the Odysseus Bow after every 4 basic attacks, creating that little arc lightning, and Titan's Bane going to help out in terms of destroying some of these objectives in the form of Fire Giant.
Gold Fury being considered now by Nocturnes. Hurriwind is nearby, so is Snoopy. Gold Fury at half HP, but the numbers favor Nocturnes, but they don't have anyone in zoning position. So they have to spread out, not all get hit by Snoopy's ult. Remember, Snoopy has an absurd amount of cooldown, so that'll be back soon.
And the thing is, because not only the cooldown reduction, there's not that much sustain at all from Nocturns Gaming to keep themselves up. So all those shots connecting from Snoopy in one way or another sets up the masterful shot, forces Nocturnes back, specifically LeaaN, and now CLG are looking at the Fire Giant?
Nocturnes disengaged too much, I felt like, off that Gold Fury, especially with how much they lowered it, but they ended up giving that one away. So now it's CLG turning their attention towards the Fire Giant, or at least controlling the pits. Smitero and Noitu walking in, trying to get some understanding of what's going on. They will meet the Puch. Pluck brings Noitu right back into the crypts, and the Wrath of Terror. The sun's coming out from Zaionsix is enough to slow everybody and Nocturnes escape, but CLG come out better.
There needed to be perfect execution to kill Noitulover there, and the pull from Jigz was close, but just narrowly off the mark. And also the Suns, I think, zoned away some of the damage dealers at a CLG to confirm that kill, so at least gonna breathe easier. However, you might have been able to bully the Athena, but she comes back with her global.
fineokay, the initiator. One more time, Noitulover will be the target, but fineokay gets shredded and has to go to the lurking in the waters just to safely disengage. And LeaaN's damage is certainly nothing to shrug at this point in the game. And it's CLG who are falling back. It's Smitero looking to loop around.
Oh, they didn't stop the back from fineokay. And that's going to be a big factor because Smitero, you know he wants to look for a fight, but already blinking in the backline, it's going to be fineokay looking for some disruption.
And that is going to be a problem because it's essentially a second health bar in this fight. He used the teleport to get right back into the fray, and Nocturnes lose that small window they earned on the right-hand side off the Athena ultimate, which again is down, and now CLG can head right back to FG.
They're going to look for something here. They have so much vision control around this Fire Giant. Smitero wrapping around the backhand side. Does get spotted out from Snoopy, avoiding the pull, but Mad Guy's Cloak would have prevented it. Just wants to make sure that they pop that bubble.
Still not ready to pull the objective just yet, though. CLG playing this one rather patient as we approach the 30-minute mark. And we talked about it already. They kind of have to. Nocturns are right there with them, have proven that they can win these team fights largely off of LeaaN's damage on this Agni. But Zaionsix controls a lot of space with his ultimate as well. So certainly will not be an easy task for them, as Pyromancer looks like should go to Nocturns.
Now, the thing about CL2's draft is, yes, they do have the double sustain to make these team fights last longer, but between the Pele and the Puch, those gods are rather bursty to the point where you want the team fights to last sooner instead of later. So it's a little bit of a catch-22 as Nocturns, they have damage all across the board, and not like their team fight potential. The only thing they're really lacking is the same kind of sustain.
Even still, I feel like we haven't gotten to get quite as much out of this Serqet you might have expected. There's just no way in, I feel like, on the backside for SmiteVOD, even with that blink, as CLG have started to at least look at the Fire Giant and force Nocturne's hand. The ring has now flared up as well, so they got to be extra careful as fineokay wants LeaaN on the left-hand side. They know he's the primary target.
The dash is down. LeaaN is going to be the target. It's easy kill as fineokay gets credit with that one, emptying the crypts as Hurriwind, the masterful shot, almost taking out SmiteVOD's life.
Daelon gets plucked back in by fineokay, and it'll be very difficult for the Artio to disengage. But once CLG find LeaaN, that's the primary target, the key focus for them. As SmiteVOD still low, was thinking about it.
Oh my goodness.
Wisely leaving.
Yeah, I don't know why he's still there. He doesn't have last breath. Like, what is he actually trying to accomplish in that scenario? But we'll back off. Finally, CLG, after 31 minutes of play, confirmed the very first Fire Giant of game number 2.
And it really was just as simple, it feels like, as finding this Agni in the team fight. And it was kind of fineokay's job to use that blink effectively to get right to him and force that Aegis right away.
He wanted to also find SmiteVOD for the Mad Guy's Cloak, but when you're that close to an Agni, you're able to catch up to them. The dash of the Sobek matches that of LeaaN, so once you're able to cut the distance after the escape, lurking in the water, forces out the Aegis as well, Mask with a hot cleanup.
So Snoopy rounds out the build with the Crusher, sells off the Mage's Blessing, still no lifesteal in there, and at this point Snoopy hasn't really even looked like he's needed it in particular. He's got the help from the Sylvanus, he's getting some heals himself off the herbal medicine, so at this point Snoopy certainly should be chunking through whoever's in front of him.
He has plenty of a gap closer as well between the giddy up, so he has some defensive measures. Jigz with the shell could save the life, and the positioning of Snoopy has been rather good in the late game. Early game to mid-game, he was a little bit reckless, I would say. Yet again, 3 deaths onto him. He's been part of 3 of the 5 kills for Nocturns Gaming.
We're shifting now into the sieging stage of the game, totally, as CLG forced down the tier 2 in mid. Actually, they don't grab it. Nocturnes show up just in time, but it's essentially a formality. That's so weak that CLG can knock it down any moment. Left side tier 2 exposed as well. All the tier 1s taken down. So a lot of goals to kind of finally break open the lead. Yeah,
red buff now going to Snoopy. Hurriwind getting his own red buff. Mid tower in the tier 2 goes down. Tier 2 on the left side soon to follow. The question is, how does CLG transition into this? Are they going to go for Phoenix right off the bat with this 2-minute, 15-second Fire Giant? Or are they thinking about a more conservative plan? It seems to be the latter.
They are going to come back to the Gold Fury, but they certainly do have to make sure they have a plan for this one. The Agni can feel very difficult to siege into at times. I mean, he's able to position pretty far back and still impact you with that back end of the rain fire, even the stuns to try and stop your initiations as you come through too. So making sure that they're able to correctly time their way in is going to be important.
If CLG can focus out the Agni the same way they did in Gate or before the Fire Giant, then that's the way the Phoenix Sieges are just going to open up. Have fineokay force the defensive dash from LeaaN. Look for Mask to look for that secondary blink. Keep Jigz in the backline for the peel.
Gonna have to be the focus for them as Hurriwind has finished his build off as well. Rotitude in the Gem of Isolation. To be, I imagine, as annoying as possible when you're stuck inside the crypts and being slowed. It can feel like you're moving through quicksand, so that should help out. They've got a mage who's equally annoying as in sieges as well.
And it's easy to keep members into that crypts considering fineokay has the pluck, Jigz has the pull, and Mask has a knock-up as well to keep them a little bit longer within those zombie corpses.
And that's what we've seen so far. Jigz has really played exceptionally well, I feel like, this game on this Sylvanus. He's been pulling members back in, locking them down inside the damage from Hurriwind, setting up for for Snoopy to find his snipes.
Speaking of Jigz, looking at his build, a very late Gauntlet of Thebes.
That is like
trying to stack that up. Still needs about 18 more stacks to get that passive, which will give you additional physical and magical protection. But that's only about 3 more waves, so you're looking at a 1.5-minute due time.
Well, that is one thing you're doing a lot of, though, is clearing those waves, right? When you're just kind of waiting on the sieges to happen.
Sure.
So if we're going into this stage of the game where you're going to be kind of just trying to wait and find your opportunity, maybe that's not too bad a plan.
And that's a very small power spike considering how late into the game this is. That power spike would have been way better if this was like a 3rd item, maybe even a 2nd item to group up around some Gold Furies where there's not that much penetration that you have to worry about, whereas Nocturns now certainly having a lot if you look across the builds.
And it actually does kind of add even more value to LeaaN's build in a way, doesn't it? Because he has the Magus and he's so clearly focused on trying to like shred through those protections. So now there is some in that aura going around that he can kind of try and whittle away at too to try and make things a little bit more effective for Daelon and Noitulover.
Well, it's just trying to make sure that members aren't taking true damage against LeaaN. Some of the squishies.
Virtually what they would be.
Yeah.
At this point in the game, 36 minutes in now, still only 14 kills. Nocturns have at least not been baited too much into bad fights, but CLG slowly have whittled away at them, and now they've got a substantial lead they can push in with.
You could just feel the tension between both of these teams.
It's a lot.
CLG doesn't want to mess up. They know that this is their time to shine, honestly. They win this game, they knock out Nocturns, they advance even further into the HRX placements, whereas Nocturns has the potential to still come back into this game. Sure, they may be down 13,000 gold or so, but this is 80,000 gold, where 5.5 to 6 items are complete from Nocturns, as opposed to CLG having a full build anyway. This is not your 40,000 gold versus 53,000 gold, where things are looking very scary.
Yeah, and if I'm in those player booths, I have all day. I mean, whatever it takes for me to get my W. So CLG are playing this exactly the right way. They want to make sure they can get this win as they start to pull the Fire Giant. Look where SmiteVOD is. They should be able to recognize they have a ward on that backside to see him come through. So CLG have all the information.
But he's actually looking to split push a little bit. He gets a wave before anything happens. Daelon looking for the root. Jigz still tanking the Fire Giant, but he's taking a decent amount of poke here.
They blink forward. Mask and fineokay are the two that go in to cause the disruption. Volcanic Lightning is ripping through the team fight as well as fineokay finds the first one, and it's LeaaN, the key target.
Going to use the Defender of Olympus onto SmiteVOD. Is he going to go back in? No, he doesn't. Doesn't have the last breath that he really wants. Utilizing now some sustained. Snoopy is the focus fire from Nocturns, it looks like. They want to go in.
Nocturns know that they have to try and find some kind of way to punish after all these ultimates have been used, especially without their Agni. Their defense is going to be so much worse if they have to wait until he's back up, but they're having a hard time finding a way in.
That dive, man. That dive is almost identical to how they dove LeaaN in that last encounter before the Fire Giant was secured. First goes in fineokay, second goes in Mask, and it not only made LeaaN's life more difficult, but also Zion.
Fire Giant to the call one more time. Half HP SmiteVOD on the back end yet again. He has a sentry, or at least a sentry ward there from CLG, so they know he's there. And they'll be patient about their timing on this. No maids to worry about to out-confirm them, but they drop it yet again. A lot of respect given to Nocturne.
Using Jigz's Wisps to sustain themselves a little bit further. Daelon now going to get rooted, pulled as well. Pluck still being held on to SmiteVOD is going to get shifted.
Mask is looking for him. Volcanic Lightning eradicates him one more time. fineokay lurking in the waters to lock down Zaionsix. A double for Mask as Nocturne's now reeling. They've got to leave. This Fire Giant is for CLG.
So clean. CLG are so patient. And they were so grouped up between those two little rocks in the middle of the Fire Giant pit. It's just unfortunate that Nocturne doesn't have the greatest of AoE damage if LeaaN is dead to take advantage of that grouping.
And that's exactly why CLG played it that way. They knew they had the time until LeaaN was able to come back up to take exactly the fight they wanted. They forced Nocturnes to overstep. They get the pull onto Daelon, and then from there they're able to get the isolation on SmiteVOD and win the fight. And now they want this right side Phoenix.
Looking like they want to dive it even, dropping out some wards. Jigz will tank it initially after dropping his Wisps. Snoopy going to get some pot shots off. It's 3 members from Nocturns Gaming against the full 5 from CLG.
LeaaN LeaaN uses the beads. I don't know if that was when he exactly meant to do it, and now Mask knows he can come right in. He settles for Noitu instead, but the right side Phoenix has already been shredded. CLG can move right over to the mid.
Mask trying to go onto LeaaN, but just out of range for the knockup. So getting the first Firebird 39 minutes into the game. Left side minions has accumulated, trying to poke away at CLG's dual lane Phoenix.
Yeah, right now, CLG probably not too concerned, though it looks like they're hesitating on whether or not they want to push through into this mid Phoenix right here, right now. CLG, again, playing this one relatively slow. At this point with the Fire Giant, and after having found that right side Phoenix, try and give some time for those Fire minions to spawn and push up.
That's very true. 2.5 minutes remain on the Fire Giant buff, and CLG, they've been patient at the end of game number 1. And they're going to be even more patient at the end of game number 2. Even buying a bunch of health potions and multi-potions to have it stack up to like 300 to 400 seconds. So during the team fights, you're still getting about 15 health every second.
Giving even more sustain for the team. They'll grab gold for Ritu. Why not? Can still finish off some relics, buy some more potions if need be, even replace some last-minute items as Kin Size has come through now for Snoopy in that final slot instead of the Crusher. He wants to be able to get a little bit more attack speed and chew through some of these healthier targets more so than the protection.
That's very true. Realizing that as good as the ability damage is with the Crusher, that passive not going to do as much compared to the passive from the Chin Size.
Pretty good, isn't it? Chin Size.
Doing % health damage?
I like it for the most part.
Let's go.
Yeah, that's Snoopy making good use of it. They're going to push down on the left-hand side. And again, give some time for these Fire minions to start pushing in and right. That's where the real big advantage for the sieging team can start to come in, Toli, is when they can force exactly like this, Smatero over to the right side to try and defend.
Well, they're going to distract them on the right side with all those Fire minions. Now thinking about how they want to aggress. Hurriwind is going to make a little pit stop to pick up the red buff. Good looks there, considering Snoopy has one of his own. So double red buff now from CLG, trying to siege this dual lane Phoenix. Look for the blink from fineokay, followed by Mask.
I almost wonder if LeaaN should go Magi somewhere in this build with just how much he's the focus. Clearly, CLG want to get him out of the fight as soon as possible.
He almost has to be so far back that he can't even hit anybody, and there goes CLG.
They're going in right away, but they can't find anything more. Snoopy dashes back out. Daelon takes a poke on the right-hand side, and LeaaN immediately dashed away, but the Phoenix being chunked, already down to half HP. Zaionsix pulled in, and it's Hurriwind's damage that gets him out of the game.
And he didn't have the beads because he used it preemptively against the blink from fineokay. CLG are really capitalizing on these relics being on cooldown. Now with a 5-on-4 for a full minute. No Hunter from Nocturns, and this could be the game-ending push, Finch.
And not just the game-ending push, it's a tournament-ending push if your Nocturns are one of their fans. Their last stance that they had to try and make it SmiteVOD a little bit too far forward. CLG recognizing and regrouping for their mid-push, essentially 5v3 until SmiteVOD rebacks. Snoopy chunking through the middle lane Phoenix.
Middle Phoenix going to go down as well. The Titan is at its most vulnerable form. CLG regrouping to get the sustain off from Jigz. Fire minions trickling down the right side, and CLG are barreling in.
fineokay is the first one in. Titan being shredded, already down now to half HP. fineokay zoning everyone out, and that's all it takes. CLG 2-0 over Nocturns. It removed them from the tournament.
Very clean ending there. CLG definitely switching things up compared to the beginning of game number 1, and they really are heavily favoring this double sustain composition. The Chiron there at the end for Snoopy compared to the Cupid in games 1 and 2. I really like his difference of style. Very meta-like compared to a lot of the other hunters in this tournament.
Yeah, Snoopy absolutely just played his own game there throughout the entirety of that set. And you could see it from CLG. You know, there's some relief there at the end of that game. Mask even giving the thumbs up. They played that game methodically throughout the end of game 1, the entirety of game 2, left nothing to chance. And that's why they're the team moving on.
And SmiteVOD looks really defeated there after losing game number 2, realizing that he has to now go back home. No more games for him to play in the HRX placement. Game number 1, playing the Bakasura, felt a little lackluster for him. He wasn't in position to make a lot of the plays. Game number 2, though, was a big different story, playing the Serqet, able to really pop off.
It has to be some heartbreak here, I would say, for the Nocturns team. This is a team that a lot of us had a lot of high hopes for coming into this tournament, and they just, I don't think, could show it the type of performance that they wanted to show here in this event. But we know that this is a strong team with a lot of players. We definitely wish them the most for their futures. But it's CLG who are the ones that are going to continue on throughout this lower bracket. It's going to be elimination for them every match they're in now for the rest of the tournament.
And I think CLG has the potential to, you know, climb that a little bit further here with how clean they were towards the ending of game number 1 and 2. fineokay was really disruptive towards the end of game 2. LeaaN couldn't do anything on that Agni.
They made him the focus. That's really when things turned around for CLG. Whatever it took, they dove that Agni and got him out of those fights.
Yeah, and not only that, Zaionsix was struggling as well. During that last Phoenix siege, fineokay goes in, forces the beats early, and then once he overcommits, gets blown up by Hurriwind.
Well, a very clean win for CLG here in this set. Let's get it back over to the analysts to tell us their thoughts.
Thanks a lot, guys. And what a set it was. CLG coming out with pretty much exactly what a lot of people had anticipated. Any surprises here for you, J-Mac?
I mean, they held them off for quite a long time. Their Nocturns was not giving an inch all throughout the game. They even really had, as small of a lead as it was a little bit of a lead holding on for a majority of that game.
CLG took a while to beat Nocturns there, and that's kind of the only surprise, I think. Nocturns played pretty well in that second game, but it was just Mask and fineokay worked too well together on those backline dives, and LeaaN was playing really, really well, was doing a ton of damage on this Agni, and then CLG just decided that they didn't want to take a lot of Agni damage anymore, and then from that point on, really didn't take that much Agni damage because fineokay and Mask were all over him. It would start with Mask blinking in, using that eruption, that would force LeaaN's Aegis, and then fineokay would dash after him and lurk in the waters, and what is LeaaN supposed to do?
Only 5 deaths on the side of CLG. As we take a look at our post-game stats brought to you by Axis Replay. I mean, these guys just not able to really find the kills, Nocturns that is, and SmiteVOD, Daelon, these guys are strong players. CLG just came through, and realistically, I think this is the Mask effect hard stop. I think that fineokay performed really strongly, and I think the majority of CLG as a unit were really strong. But again, I think Mask was sort of the string pulling everything together. If CLG don't make the roster change, I don't think we see this level of dominance.
No, I agree with you. I think that Mask has changed not only the way that CLG, the team, has played, but in these little tiny team fights, in the little moments that you expect for CLG, Mask has made a big difference in the way that CLG seems to just see the map.
Mask might have set the table there, but fineokay is going to be your Steel Series MVP of the set. Fantastic performance from him over there on the short side, and his game was anything but short.
And that's what you really want out of your solo laner, is to be that front line. We talked in the picks and bans about how they were lacking just that one last little thing, and it was the initiation. And fineokay, alongside Mask, was really able to pull through with it. Twice at that Fire Giant, we saw the two of them, just those two, diving in, disrupting that backline, making sure that his team could be able to pick up that objective.
This is exactly what I'm talking about. LeaaN uses the Aegis in eruption to not take eruption damage, and then fineokay hits him for half his health with lurking in the waters. And that is unpeelable damage. There is nothing you can do to stop that damage unless you're giving him a shell and a sprint and trying to get him out of danger. It's the same story over and over and over again, and there's not a whole lot that Nocturns could have done to stop it.
The blink tail whip is just always so devastating, right? A lot of times you want the blink pluck just for the initiation factor and isolate an individual, but in those situations, just blinking and just hitting tail whip and being able to get in the middle of everybody, that's really, really key. That's essential. And that's what fineokay was able to do. We've got Jigz and one of his friends over here standing by. Post-game interview. Let's see what they have to say for themselves.
I'm here with Jigz and fineokay, support and solo for CLG. The first question, I feel like we kind of got to ask this one. It was tough yesterday. I know coming into this match, you got a pretty clean win here. Just what's the team's overall atmosphere like and mindset like, you know, after the game yesterday and then having a very clean win here today?
We're really just taking it like one game at a time. Yesterday was a little bit disappointing for us because we started off so strong. I think we got a little bit like lost in the LeaaN meta, and we used today as kind of like an experimental day to mess around with some stuff.
So speaking of experimentation, were you guys like doing research and preparation for Nocturns, or were you guys like more playing your individual style?
We did way more prep, or not prep necessarily, but review on like the rival set than we did prep for Nocturne. We didn't think it'd be like too challenging, but we looked into all their picks. We knew that they play similarly to like rival, and they picked similarly to us as well. And we just decided we were gonna try some stuff.
And fine, for me and Totally, it really seemed like towards the end of game 1 and all of game 2, you are playing really carefully. Was that like an adjustment to make sure you got the win, or something happening in the game? Talk to us a little bit about that.
Like Jake said, we were kind of experimenting a little bit, so we weren't too comfortable with our comp, but our snowball got a little bit stalled because I got picked going into Gold Fury, and we didn't really have wards or anything. But it was more just playing careful because we don't know like the limits of like the comp and like the picks that we had and everything like that. So it's pretty much just that, and taking them serious because Nocturns is a good team, and that was like their do or die game. So they're definitely trying to win it to the best of their abilities. So we're just taking them as serious as possible. So yeah.
So two-part question for you guys. You will face off the winner of Trifecta versus SK. Number one, who do you think is going to win that matchup? And number two, who would you rather face and why?
That's tough call, huh? We think, well, I think Trifecta's looking better. I think it's a hard call on who we want to play because we know Trifecta really well since we played them all year, and the element of surprise is can be pretty overwhelming at LeaaN when going against SK, but yeah, I don't know. I think Trifecta's a little bit better, but we know them better, so it's a hard call.
All right, well, congratulations there on that game. Good luck to you all and all your sets coming forward as well, and thanks again for coming in to talk.
Thank you. Thanks.
HRX is brought to you by hi-rez Studios, iNap, Mixer, Alienware, and Skillshot.